El Chino, Sinaloa cartel's highest-ranking hitman. The Sinaloa cartel is a powerful and influential criminal organization based in the Mexican state of Sinaloa. The cartel is known for its involvement in drug trafficking and other criminal activities such as money laundering and murder. The Sinaloa cartel is one of the largest and most powerful drug trafficking organizations in the world, and it has been involved in a long-running and violent conflict with other criminal groups in Mexico. Despite ongoing efforts by the Mexican government to crack down on drug trafficking, the Sinaloa cartel remains a major force in the illegal drug trade. Jose Rodrigo Arechiga Gamboa had a surprisingly normal and privileged upbringing. He was born on the 15th of June in Culiacan, the very heart of Sinaloa, Mexico. His family was well respected and somewhat affluent. His father was a government official and his mother was an academic. However, there was a problem right from the beginning, and it had everything to do with Arechiga's neighbors. The family that lived next door to Arechiga's through his childhood were the Zambadas. If you aren't familiar with that name, I'll break it down for you in a few seconds. Ismael El Mayo Zambada Garcia was part of the 4 people who founded the Sinaloa cartel 35 years ago in 1987, and that's how Arechiga's name came to be popularly known as El Chino. El Chino was a notorious hitman for the Sinaloa cartel, one of the most powerful and dangerous drug trafficking organizations in the world. He was known for his ruthlessness and ability to evade capture for years, earning him a reputation as one of the cartel's most feared enforcers. He joined the Sinaloa cartel, rising through the ranks to become one of its top hitmen. El Chino was known for his firearms expertise and willingness to carry out violent attacks without hesitation. However, he was also skilled at evading capture, using his knowledge of the local terrain and his connections within the cartel to stay one step ahead of the authorities. When El Chapo was still active, Zambada led his own faction. The only reason you don't hear much about him is that, unlike El Chapo, who enjoyed courting the spotlight, Zambada had always been content with being the equally ruthless and cunning, shadowy figure. Now back to Arechiga's story. El Mayo Zambada had 3 sons: Vincentine Zambada, Nabla Ismael Zambada Imperial, and Serafin Zambada Ortiz. The 3 sons were around the same age, Arechiga being his neighbor. He grew up with them. Many years later, in a courtroom, Arechiga's mom would say this about her son's relationship with the Zambadas. They went to school together. They played together. They participated in sports together. They attended social events together. And they grew to be best friends. No one knows how much influence these Zambada boys had on Arechiga's, but they must know that Zambada did not shield his sons from his cartel business. It was a family business. However, as Arechiga grew older, he didn't show any indication that he would live a life of crime. He tried to be a pilot in the Mexican military. Still, he failed the physical exam because he had a skin condition called psoriasis. So, Arechiga shifted his focus to other things. More specifically, he decided to pursue a degree in architecture in college. During his time in college, 2 life-changing events happened to him quickly. 1, he had a daughter, and 2, he got married. These new responsibilities forced him to drop out of school, which was when things took a dramatic turn. As a father, husband, and provider, a new chapter in life proved incredibly difficult for Arechiga. When it became unbearable, he turned to his childhood friends, the Zambada brothers, for help. One of the brothers, Vicente Zambada, also known as El Vicentillo, chose to help Arechiga the only way he could, by introducing him to the cartel business. Arechiga was tasked with small and harmless errands like driving shipments and supervising goods to their destinations. El Vicentillo introduced him to the drug trade when he did these tasks perfectly. It was during this time that Arechiga's creativity entered the spotlight. He devised an ingenious method of getting shipments of cocaine and marijuana across the border without getting caught. His plan involved creating a network of legitimate businesses requiring shipments from Mexico to America. Then he would set up several legitimate trucking companies that delivered those shipments. This way he could legally get the trucks across because they had the proper paperwork, and the Border Patrol would not know that tons and tons of drugs were hidden in each truck. In no time, Arechiga became a big-time player within the Sinaloa cartel and caught the attention of El Vicentillo's father, the senior Zambada, El Mayo, who began to take a liking to him sometime around this point. Something snapped within Arechiga, or maybe it had always been there, because this was when he began to exhibit an unquenchable thirst for blood. He voluntarily engaged in the more grisly parts of the cartel trade more than anyone else in the cartel. At that point, Arechiga was willing to murder people. However, it was the things he did with the bodies of the people that he killed that turned him into a notoriously feared urban legend. His mutilated bodies, like cautionary banners and grisly ribbons, were hung up on public bridges within Sinaloan territory. The rumor in town was that anyone who died at the hands of Arechiga continued their suffering in the afterlife because of what was done to their body. Unsurprisingly, El Mayo capitalized on Arechiga's flair for violence and added him to his retinue of feared assassins. More importantly, he was made the personal bodyguard of El Vicentillo Los Anthrax. Around 2008, Arechiga was removed from bodyguard duties and given a new, arguably more important assignment by El Mayo. There was a civil war brewing within the Sinaloa cartel. An ally of the Sinaloa cartel had broken off and was waging war. They were the Beltran Lever organization, and while their fight was with El Chapo, El Mayo was caught in the middle and had to join the war. The situation was the perfect storm for Arechiga. He formed his own armed squadron of the Sinaloa cartel and named it Los Angeles. The deadly members of his team included his right-hand man, Rene Velasquez Valenzuela, a.k.a. El Sargento, Phoenix Jesus Peña, also known as I-20, Rafael Guadalupe Felix Nunez, also known as Changuito Anthrax, amongst others, and every member was given a ring as the head of this hit squad. Arechiga would be known as El Chino Anthrax, which translated to Chinese anthrax. They had two jobs. One was the protection of El Mayo Zambada, and the second was a war on anyone who dared to cross their paths. Anthrax wreaked havoc on Sinaloa over 5 years of unending violence, and Arechiga became an unrecognizable monster. Every time they clashed with the Beltran Lever, it was a bloodbath with casualties on both sides, including civilians. Meanwhile, the Mexican army joined the party and tried to take both factions down. After a while, rival cartel members got fed up, and they began taking out members of the Los Anthrax even though the Mexican military joined the party. Meanwhile, Arechiga began to take an unhealthy liking to the spotlight, as Arechiga's gang suffered hit after hit, and his leadership began to look shaky in the eyes of El Mayo. On the 1st of November 2011, Los Anthrax suffered one of its biggest blows when a fellow leader of the squad, Francisco Archie Rubio, whom everyone knew as Pancho, was killed during an indoor soccer game in Culiacan by rival gangsters of Los Mazars, the enforcer arm of the Beltran Lever organization. The reprisal violence that followed shook different cities in Sinaloa. For months to come, bodies hung from the bridges, civilians were shot dead on playgrounds, and there was violence everywhere. Meanwhile, Arechiga took revenge on his enemies. Unfortunately, he also picked up another questionable hobby as a social media influencer. As crazy as it sounds, and frankly, it shouldn't, Arechiga flaunted his wealth on social media and effectively became a social media influencer. He made millions of dollars from the cartel, and unsurprisingly spent those millions on flashy cars, rented out expensive yachts, and bought expensive watches and houses. Despite his fearsome reputation, El Chino was also known for his loyalty to the Sinaloa cartel and its leader, the infamous drug lord Joaquin El Chapo Guzman. He was willing to carry out any orders given to him by the cartel, no matter how ruthless or violent. El Chino's most notable attack was the 2010 massacre of 16 people in La Jolla, Sinaloa. He and a group of other cartel hitmen stormed a house in the town, killing everyone inside in a brutal and ruthless attack. El Chino's reign of terror continued for several years, with the cartel using his skills as a hitman to eliminate rivals and silence potential witnesses. However, in 2016, Mexican authorities finally caught him following a lengthy manhunt. He was sentenced to multiple life sentences in prison, where he remains. But despite his capture, El Chino's legacy as one of the Sinaloa cartel's most ruthless and feared hitmen lives on. On the 18th of October 2013, El Chino, dressed as a clown, was set to assassinate Francisco Rafael Arellano, or Felix, the leader of the notorious Tijuana cartel, and one of Mexico's most dangerous men at the time, in front of everyone present at his 63rd birthday party. El Chino and a group of other cartel hitmen stormed a house in the town, brutally killing everyone inside. The attack was carried out ruthlessly, and El Chino's expertise in firearms was evident. The massacre sent shockwaves through the community and was a testament to the cartel's willingness to use violence to assert its power. Despite being involved in this and other violent attacks, El Chino evaded capture for many years. However, in 2016, Mexican authorities finally arrested him after a lengthy manhunt. He was sentenced to multiple life sentences in prison, where he remains. It is unclear exactly how he was caught, as details of his arrest have not been publicly released. However, authorities likely used a combination of intelligence gathering, surveillance, and informants to track down El Chino and bring him to justice. After his arrest, El Chino was tried and convicted of his crimes, including his involvement in the 2010 massacre of 16 people in La Jolla, Sinaloa. Let us know your views in the comments below.